the challenger, Bobby Roode, outside of Bobby Roode, taking the beer bottle.
James Storm versus Bobby Roode, widely known as one of the best tag teams of the 21st century and arguably the greatest tag team in the history of TNA as Beer Money, they took part in one of the more violent rivalries in the near 23-year history of the company. Whether it be over the World Heavyweight title or over their sheer hatred of one another following Bobby Roode's shocking betrayal, it served as one of the most brutal and bloody feuds of not only TNA, but all of professional wrestling throughout the 21st century. And that is what we will be discussing in today's video. If you do enjoy this video and you want to see more videos about all the random and cool stuff that comes from pro wrestling, be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. With that being said, let's get right into it. As usual, before we get into the feud itself, we must familiarize ourselves with the wrestlers in question.
I'm going to get a bunch of balloons and I'm going to tie them around your pathetic little body. Then I'm going to proceed to drop kick you into the California sky.
Meet Bobby Roode. Throughout his 26-year-long career, Roode is typically known for two different periods. His glorious time in WWE near the end of his career, where he won the NXT title, the US title, as well as the tag titles 3 times, and his run in Total Nonstop Action, or TNA for short, where he was an 8-time tag champion, 2 times with the NWA belt, 6 times with the TNA belt, and a 2-time World Heavyweight champion, with his first reign lasting for 256 days, and was the longest reign in the history of the championship for over 10 years. Roode joined TNA in 2004 after he was brought in by Scott D'Amore, a fellow wrestler and promoter, to join the Team Canada stable with the likes of D'Amore, P.D. Williams, Eric Young. The group disbanded in 2006, and Roode embarked on a singles run, adopting a stock trader gimmick, lengthening the first name from Bobby to Robert, and taking on Tracy Brooks as his manager. After a 2-year run on the mid-card, Roode ventured back into the tag division, where he would team with this man.
Here in Arlington, Texas, at Slammiversary, to back the Cowboy.
Meet James Storm. With a career spanning nearly 30 years himself, 16 of those years were spent in TNA, where he was most known and where he became a 14-time tag team champion, 7 times under the NWA banner, 7 times in the TNA banner, a former world champion, a former King of the Mountain champion, and a 2-time world beer drinking champion. I mean, this is a world title in my book. Before entering the next chapter of his career, Storm was known for his involvement in another legendary tag team in TNA, known as America's Most Wanted, or AMW for short, where he tagged with Wildcat Chris Harris, and that's where he would win 6 of his 7 NWA World Tag Team titles. Similar to Roode, Storm eventually went his own way and ventured into singles competition after a violent breakup with Harris. After some time on his own chilling in the mid-card, Storm would eventually make his way back to the tag team division, and it was here where one of the greatest teams in TNA history was born.
But it was Dutch that came up with the Beer Money thing. I was doing my singles run, and James was doing his singles run, and we were just kind of floating around, kind of mid-card guys. They had an idea to put us together in just like a throwaway tag team match, and we just kind of had this, something sparked there. I don't know, and Dutch saw it, and Dutch just, once you're in Dutch's sights and he likes something he sees, he kind of runs with it and makes it his baby. So we were paired together, and I remember I think we had a match. It was, again, we weren't Beer Money yet, and we had a match, and we did a backstage promo right after. I think it was Vince Russo that wrote it, but end line was something to the effect of, the 2 things that make the world go round was beer and money, because I was like the Wall Street guy, yeah. and James was the beer drinking cowboy, and we just said, like, and then it was like a light bulb went off, and we're off to the races.
They won their first of 5 tag titles as a team at the Hard Justice pay-per-view on August 10th, 2008, and fully cemented themselves as one of the premier tag teams in not just TNA, but all of professional wrestling. It didn't matter if they were in serious title contention or if they were doing some goofy comedy skits. They were chameleons who seemingly could do no wrong no matter what their role was. In 2010, they joined the Fortune Group led by Ric Flair and had a best-of-5 series with the Motor City Machine Guns, and what is still talked about to this very day as one of the best series in recent history as far as tag team wrestling goes. They started their 4th reign as tag champions at Genesis 2011, and that reign was the longest in company history for a solid 8 years. This would be the last title reign for Beer Money for a long time, as we move on to the next chapter of this story. The Batt For Glory series was a tournament held across all of TNA's programming and live events, where the winner of said tournament would receive a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship at that year's Bound for Glory show. Similar to AEW's Continental Classic or New Japan's G1 Climax, the tournament was conducted under round-robin rules, meaning that however the wrestler won their match would dictate however many points that they earned. For example, submission victories would count for 10 points, pinfalls would count for 7, Countouts count for 5, DQs count for 3, and a draw counts for 2. On top of that, if you get DQ'd, you lose 10 of your own points. The top 4 point earners would face each other in multiple singles matches at the No Surrender pay-per-view to determine the ultimate winner. In this case, the top 4 point earners in this tournament were Bobby Roode, Bully Ray, Gunner, and James Storm in that order. At No Surrender, Bully beat Storm by disqualification, while Roode beat Gunner by submission after adopting a Fujiwara armbar. In the final, Roode went on to beat Bully and cement his spot in the main event of Bound for Glory against the then defending champion, Kurt Angle. Leading up to the event, TNA aired multiple vignettes of Roode to establish him as a fiery babyface against the corporate champion in Angle. At the show, Angle retained the title by grabbing onto the ropes for leverage while Roode's arm was underneath the bottom rope. Personally, kind of a flat ending to the pay-per-view given how much you've invested into Roode, but it's all good assuming that this is leading to a bigger angle between the two, right? Well, kinda. On the following episode of Impact, Roode demanded another shot at Angle after what took place at the pay-per-view, but Sting, who had defeated Kurt Angle at Bound for Glory to take control of TNA, said that it wasn't going to happen. Instead, Sting gave an opportunity to Roode's tag partner James Storm to take on Angle for the world title, which took place at that episode of Impact where Storm shocked the world and beat Angle in about 75 seconds to win his first world championship. The following week, Roode defeated Samoa Joe to become the #1 contender for Storm's world title, a match that was held on the November 3rd episode of Impact from Macon, Georgia. The match itself was a really solid back and forth display up until around the 16-minute mark when referee Brian Hebner avoided potential disaster but tweaked his ankle in the process of escape. Storm hit Roode with a code breaker, Roode rolls out of the ring while Storm is down on the mat. As Roode recovers, he notices the signature beer bottle of James Storm on the steel steps and quickly makes a decision that would alter the trajectory of both men's careers forever. Roode grabs the beer bottle, smashes it over the head of Storm while Hebner is still recovering, knocking out Storm and getting the 3 count over him to win his first world championship while turning heel in the process. They had a rematch 1 week later, but Roode won in decisive fashion after Storm came out bloodied and in no condition to have a competitive match following an attack backstage, which would later be revealed to be Kurt Angle, but that doesn't really have much relevance to the subject at hand. From here on, outside of one singles match in January of 2012, which resulted in Roode winning yet again, there would be no singles bouts between Roode and Storm for a considerably long amount of time. Roode in the meantime defended the world title against a myriad of opponents like AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Sting, and even James Storm, albeit in the multi-man format. The next time these men would face off would be at the Lockdown pay-per-view event on April 15th, 2012, in a match that would be held inside of a steel cage in Nashville, Tennessee, Storm's home state. In the finish of that match, Storm hit Roode with a last call superkick that sent Roode through the cage door and onto the floor to somehow retain the title. This was the last time that Storm faced off against Roode during his title reign. Following Lockdown, Storm took a break from TNA while Roode continued to defend his title, retaining against the likes of Rob Van Dam as well as the aforementioned Styles to surpass Styles' record as the longest reigning World Heavyweight Champion in company history at over 211 days. We now move on to the 10th anniversary of TNA's existence, simply known as Slammiversary. On this card, not only did Roode successfully defend his title against Sting, who had just been announced as the first inductee into the TNA Hall of Fame, but James Storm made his surprise return to end the 473-day undefeated streak of Crimson. Upon Storm's return to the company, he was entered into the 2012 Bound for Glory series and ultimately made his way to the finals of that tournament, while Roode was dealing with the latest threat to his record-setting reign in the form of Austin Aries. Aries, who is the current and longest reigning X Division champion in the history of TNA, was presented an opportunity to move up the card and receive a shot at Roode's World Championship as long as he forfeited the X Division title. Aries agreed with the condition that future champions were afforded the same opportunity that he was getting once a year, effectively known as Option C. At July 8th at the Destination X pay-per-view, Aries became the one to conquer Roode and end his record-setting 256-day reign as world champion. After losing his rematch to Aries at that year's Hardcore Justice event and not being able to challenge for the title again as long as Aries was champion, it was only natural for Roode to go back and attempt to finish what he started nearly 1 year ago. September 9th, 2012, the day of the No Surrender event, which included the culmination of that year's Bound for Glory series. As mentioned before, Storm made it to the top 4 of the group, gaining 73 total points and leading the entire field with Jeff Hardy, Bully Ray, and Samoa Joe. At the event, Storm faced Bully Ray in the first semi-final match of the night, which he would lose following the interference of Bobby Roode, who had disappeared for about a month following the latest loss to Aries. On the September 20th edition of Impact, Storm called Roode out for a match on Open Fight Night. The match went to a no contest as their brawl became simply too much to handle. A match was later made official for that year's Bound for Glory between Roode and Storm, with the stipulation being a street fight. To prevent the fight from getting out of control, Hulk Hogan brought in Bellator fighter Muhammad Lawal, better known as King Mo, to be the special guest and enforcer for this match. This was billed as the culmination of this deeply personal rivalry, no championships driving these two men, just pure hatred. The match took place at the annual Bound for Glory event on October 14th, 2012 and emanated from the Grand Canyon University Arena in Phoenix, Arizona. I appreciate you for sticking with me up to this point, and with all that out of the way, let's get into the match. First, King Mo makes his way into the impact zone, followed by Roode and Storm respectively as the match gets underway. The bell rings and both men stare each other down whilst talking shit to one another. After a little while, they begin to exchange strikes, with Storm getting the upper hand, attempting to whip Roode into the corner, but Roode counters only for Storm to hit with a running forearm. Storm walks to the corner, but Roode throws him in, whips him into the opposite corner, only for Storm to bounce out for a clothesline. Storm goes even further on the offensive, whipping Roode into the corner and into a back body drop. Storm runs towards Roode, but Roode launches Storm over the top and onto the floor. Storm lands on his feet though and drags Roode partially to the outside of the ring and hits a Yakuza kick while Roode is draped. The fight is officially brought to the outside area as Storm drags Roode wherever he pleases, and Roode eventually recovers enough to get his bearings about and briefly get into a stare down with King Mo. But that's also when Storm takes him down with a clothesline and he has his own stare down with Mo, establishing further that Mo is no ally to either man. Storm tries to whip Roode into the guardrail, but Roode counters, runs towards Storm, but gets countered with a Russian leg sweep into the guardrail. Storm's maintained control for much of the early going of this match. Storm signals towards the announcer's table and sets up for an Eye of the Storm, a spinning variation of the Razor's Edge, but fights out of it, gets Storm off of his feet and catapults him into the ring post. Storm is now busted open. Roode starts to throw some weapons into the ring, grabs a nearby chair and starts unloading onto Storm with multiple shots to the back and midsection before opening up that cut on Storm's forehead even deeper. Roode sends Storm back into the ring as he grabs a kendo stick from underneath the ring and wedges a steel chair in between the turnbuckles. As he was doing this, however, Storm was waiting for Roode to turn around to whack him with that kendo stick. Storm grabs a trash can and puts it in front of Roode's crotch, walks back a little bit but stumbles due to the blood loss before hitting a home run right into Roode's pecker. Storm grabs a trash can lid and charges at Roode, only for Roode to throw him to the outside onto the entrance ramp. Roode empties the trash can and goes to lunge it at Storm, but Storm attacks the midsection and Roode launches that trash can into another dimension. Storm grabs Roode and hits a drape DDT, and there's a visual of Storm's ever-flowing crimson mask. Storm grabs a crutch from one of the fans and drives it into the shoulder of Roode. Roode now has a trash can lid in his hands, and the two begin to exchange blows to the head before Storm ultimately gets the upper hand, grabs the trash can and flat out drills Roode in the head with it. Roode has a visible amount of blood on his back, but as he gets back to his feet, Storm charges at him. Roode counters with a signature spinebuster onto the ramp. Both men are stumbling on the outside as Storm grabs a cookie sheet and smacks him across the face with it. I don't know if there was this shot that did it or not, but Roode is now donning a similar gash on his forehead. Roode kicks Storm in the midsection and brings him over to the announce table yet again, only for Storm to fight it off and come up with some ideas of his own involving that table. After some resistance following attempts by Storm to initiate some offense, Roode straight up spears Storm off of the table and into the Spanish announce table right next to it. Roode rolls Storm into the ring and goes for the first pin attempt of the match for only 2. Roode gets pissed at that result and starts shoving around referee Earl Hebner, and this is when King Mo makes his presence felt yet again. Roode shoves Mo only for Mo to shove Roode back and right into a codebreaker by Storm. Storm signals for the end and hits Roode with a last call super kick, goes for the pin, and Roode barely kicks out before 3. Both men are completely red at this point. Storm gets back to his feet and goes for the last call yet again, but Roode doesn't answer this time, throws Storm into the chair set up earlier and rolls him up with a fistful of trunks, but Storm just kicks out. Frustrated beyond belief, Roode gets Storm up to the top turnbuckle and goes underneath the ring to first grab a chair, which he hits over the back of Storm, and second grabs a bag of thumbtacks and dumps them before going back to Storm. Roode attempts a superplex, but Storm delivers headbutts to fight it off and sends Roode back first into the tacks. Storm gets to his feet and sacrifices himself to deliver an elbow drop to Roode onto the tacks. Storm goes for the pin, but only gets a 2 count. Roode hits Storm with a low blow and goes to the outside to get yet another weapon, this time being a 6-pack of beer bottles, identical to the one that Roode used to win the world title from Storm 1 year ago. Roode takes a sip of the beer and looks to end it, but Storm gives Roode a taste of his own medicine with a low blow of his own. Storm grabs one of those bottles, takes a sip out of it, waits for Roode to turn around fully, and breaks the bottle over his head. Roode falls to his knees, Storm lifts him up, gives him one last super kick for good measure as Roode falls directly into the pile of thumbtacks. Storm goes for the cover and gets the 3 count to end this match in the year-long rivalry between these two men. For the match itself, I hadn't watched this match back since I was around 11 or 12 when I watched it live, but as a 23-year-old man, this was even fucking better than I remember it being. The violence was excellently done, the in-ring storytelling was masterful from both men, the blade job from Storm as well as his babyface work throughout the match was stellar. Roode played his part perfectly as the shit-eating heel he wanted to see get killed. Personally, I don't think there's a single negative thing I could say about this match. I can honestly go on for a while about how much I love this match, and it honestly might be up there among my favorite matches in company history, but I will leave a link in the description for you guys to see for yourselves. For the feud as a whole, it reminds me a lot of Triple H versus Shawn Michaels during the early 2000s, and I think that's what TNA was trying to model this after. Instead of this being more back and forth like other rivalries I've covered on this channel, this feud followed a specific formula that a lot of other feuds in modern pro wrestling have utilized, referring of course to Tommy Dreamer versus Raven in ECW. What I mean by that is during their rivalry, Dreamer would rarely ever beat Raven during the entire time of their feud in ECW, with Dreamer going 3 of 13 in their feud from 1995 to 1997. Going into Bound for Glory, Roode won all 5 of their previous singles matches, and a quick spoiler for the future, he won the next 7 singles matches following the Bound for Glory match, meaning that Roode won 12 of their 13 singles matches from 2011 to 2015. I don't think this is necessarily a bad approach, as it did help elevate Roode to a perennial main eventer, but I do think that it did handicap Storm in regards to his perception as a character. Storm had insane potential to be a top babyface in TNA in my opinion, but it really seemed to me like TNA had absolutely no idea what to do with him as a babyface, despite that route staring him dead in the face for a very long time. While Roode thrived as both a heel and a babyface in the years following this, and even won the world title back in 2014 as a babyface, Storm was not as fortunate booking wise, as he would be slotted into what was ultimately a nothing tag team with Gunner, turned heel in 2014 to form a group known as the Revolution, in what was presumably an attempt by TNA to respond to WWE's Wyatt family, and that ended after about a year as his contract was running up and he had a free trial run in NXT for a little while, before coming back to TNA in 2016 as a babyface once again. He and Roode even reformed Beer Money and won the tag titles that year, although the reunion would be short-lived as Roode himself left TNA in 2006 to sign with WWE. Following this in a short singles run, he turned heel once again and formed the Death Crew Council, or DCC for short, with Bram and Eddie Kingston. Of course, that didn't last too long either, and Storm turned babyface for the first few months of 2017 and remained that until 2018 when he left the company whilst taking a pin for, brace yourselves, American Top Team owner Dan Lambert. I wish I was kidding. In terms of what both men are doing now, Roode had a pretty solid run in WWE, winning the NXT title, the US title, and the tag titles 3 times, when constantly being one of the most over wrestlers on the roster due to one word in particular. Roode suffered an injury in 2022, which required him to undergo neck fusion surgery. He revealed in an interview recently that he is cleared to wrestle, but at 48 years old, he formally announced his retirement after 26 years as a pro wrestler. As for Storm, he still wrestles around the indies and more well known outside federations for the most part, including a run in the NWA during the end of 2019 to the early 2020s, a brief OVW run in 2022, and is currently doing work for Juggalo Championship Wrestling as part of their new weekly series, Lunacy. But yeah, that was James Storm versus Bobby Roode in the greatest rivalry in TNA history. What did you think? Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought about this video, as I look for all feedback, positive or negative. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, so you do not miss out on any future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a great holiday, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.